Hello and welcome to a late edition of Bombs Away, a Minnesota Twins podcast. I am your host, CJ Baumgartner, and we are getting ready to break down the latest in the Minnesota Twins because we have just found out their playoff opponent. Well, not just found out. We knew that was a possibility really all month of September long. And as the days got closer and closer, really felt like the Toronto Blue Jays could be an option, although it seemed forever and ever like it was going to be the Houston Astros. But due to some last minute chokery by the Seattle Mariners and by the Texas Rangers, it's basically opened the door for the Houston Astros not only to win the American League West, but also somehow get to skirt by the wild card round entirely. And they are now into the second round in the division series. And I saw Foolish Baseball put something on Twitter about this earlier today. And he said for the second year in a row, the Seattle Mariners have helped the Houston Astros advance around in the playoffs, and accurate. So that's how the season ended. The Blue Jays dipped to the 6th seed. And look, if you've already been following the playoff race, it's been fun. I mean, like when baseball expanded to add this extra wildcard team, they expected extra chaos. They expected more things to happen. And even though coming into the final day of the season, we already knew in both leagues, and both leagues were crazy in which teams were going to get into the playoffs, there was still drama on that last day of how are the chips going to fall? Who was going to get that extra, who's going to get that first round bye in Houston? Who's going to get seeded where? And what times are the games going to be? So spoiler alert, the Minnesota Twins are going to play the Toronto Blue Jays, and all three games will be at Target Field for a best 2-out-of-3 series, as is the new format as of last year. Post-lockout, they added one extra team into the postseason. So there will be the 3 through 6 seeds competing in a best 2-out-of-3 series. The winner goes on through the wildcard series to then the division series, where it is the best 3 out of 5. And then you get to the championship series, where it's the best 4 out of 7. And then you get to the World Series, which is that same format. But for the Minnesota Twins, the times have been announced for the games, and the Minnesota Twins right now are going to play both, or really all three games, at 3:38 Central Time first pitch. Now, if you ask somebody like Justin Morneau, that actually is not an ideal time to start a ball game, and mainly because of what Morneau said of around like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that sun starts to kind of beat on Minnie and Paul and creates a really weird batter's eye effect where it's hard to read the ball, and the shadows of Target Field can be a little wonky here and there. The Twins could have got a 1 o'clock slot. They could have got a 3 o'clock slot. There's also like a 6 o'clock slot, I believe. I just had the times right in front of me here, but with all of the playoff times and kind of who goes where, who plays what time. And right now, there was a game that would start at 2 o'clock, a game that would start at 3 o'clock, a game that started at 6 o'clock, and a game that would start at 8 o'clock as well, according to the press release from Major League Baseball and how these times started off. And basically the ideal spot for the Twins was, okay, either get that night game, which would be the primetime game, or get like one of the early afternoon games. But there was really no game that's going to start at like a noon. There's really no noon first pitch game. And I think that's probably just because, again, the playoffs, like nobody really wants to have games start at noon. Now, Justin Morneau again made the point on the Twins broadcast of saying, it's kind of weird. You play the entire season at these specific game times and then the playoffs start. And they're like, nah, actually, we're going to put you at a different spot entirely that you've never played before at any time of the day. It's going to throw off your rhythm, your routine, your whatever. I get why Morneau's frustrated, but look, at the end of the day, both teams got to do it. Both teams have to play through these conditions. And right now, the Twins are going to host the Toronto Blue Jays, as we talked about. We'll get down into the tail of the tape here in just 1 second. But let's first take a look at that weather forecast, and let's see what those games are going to be like at Target Field. If you don't know, I put it out on Twitter today. Me and my wife, we're going to be at those postseason games. Well, just the first one. We are going to be at that first playoff game. We are hoping that we are going to see that streak broken. The playoff tickets have been secured. And if you look right now at the forecast on the Weather Channel app for Tuesday, currently 85 degrees the high. It's going to be really warm weather, actually. Intervals of clouds and sunshine. They're could be some rain in the forecast, but right now they don't quite think that that could be it. And then things dip right back down. We go back down into like the high 60s on Wednesday, Thursday, a high of 62. So all intents and purposes, Tuesday is going to be a great game. The weather will actually be pretty good for October in Minneapolis. It'll be pretty darn good, as we learned today. We're in the middle of that, Indian summer, or whatever term they officially call it now. But look, playoff baseball at Target Field, it's here. The Twins kind of thought they were going to play the Astros, and I know that there was this. Which team would you rather play? Would you rather play the Mariners? Would you rather play the Astros? Would you rather play the Rangers? Would you rather play the Toronto Blue Jays? And honestly, I never really had a preference one way or the other. First off, because you're in the postseason, everybody's good. You're going to have to beat everybody anyways. So there's really no point in fussing over which team you're going to end up having to play in a certain situation. But I get that there's some teams you want to avoid more than others. There was one team I wanted to avoid. It actually was the Houston Astros, just because of that championship pedigree, because a lot of those guys still are there. And look, they have Justin Verlander, they have Framber Valdez, they have the hitting. They got Alex Bregman. They have just some of these guys who have been there, done that. Now it would have been a fun storyline with Carlos Correa facing his former team, rematch of the 2020 wild card round. And some things that were going into the Twins' favor was the fact that Justin Verlander had to pitch on Saturday to try and keep the Astros not only in the playoff race, but also trying to win that American League West. And so a lot of Twins fans thought, hey, well, if Verlander doesn't pitch, or if Verlander pitches this weekend, he can't pitch game one of the wild card series, and it gives them a chance. Verlander could theoretically pitch in a small form in maybe a game 3 if necessary, maybe in like a multi-inning role, maybe starting the first time through the order or something like that. But then when that happened and Framber Valdez was pushed aside in case they had to play in the wild card round once they already clinched their spot, and a lot of Twins fans were wanting to play Houston. And look, I get it that definitely not having to face Verlander is a great thing, especially considering how good of starting pitching that the Blue Jays have. But the Mariners also had good starting pitching. And the Rangers, if you're looking at teams with starting pitching, probably had the worst out of this bunch. But there's pros and cons to each team. So the Blue Jays I'm not scared of the Blue Jays, but I think any team has the possibility to beat the Twins in a 2 out of 3 game series. And the Twins have the ability to beat any of the teams in this wild card series. The Twins split the season series with Toronto 3-3, each winning 2 out of 3 at their home ballparks. Or I believe actually the Twins won 2 out of 3 in Toronto because Carlos Correa had the go-ahead grand slam when the Twins were down 4-1. They end up winning that game, thanks in large part to Carlos Correa's grand slam in that event. But really, with the Twins, they split with the Blue Jays overall. They won the season series against the Houston Astros. They won the season series against the Texas Rangers. And I believe the Twins lost the season series against the Mariners because the Twins split in Seattle, and then they lost 2 out of 3 at Target Field. So the Twins lost 3-4 in the season series to Seattle. But the point is it can go either way. The Twins have played good series with all of them. And if you really want to have your homer take here, is that the Twins split the season series against the Blue Jays in the first half when the Twins were struggling. And the Twins were definitely not playing their best baseball. The Twins, and this is the thing that a lot of people are going to look at with the Minnesota Twins as we get into this playoff series, is they're going to say, well, the Minnesota Twins, they only had 87 wins. They don't deserve to get in the postseason. They're not a good team. They're not this, they're not that. And look, if we're going by an overall season record, I get what they're saying. But if you look since the All-Star break, the Twins, only one team has won more games than them, and that is the Baltimore Orioles. The Twins have the second best record in baseball since the halfway point. And that's what slingshot them from being 2 games below 500 to enter the second half to, 10 games above 500 or whatever that final number ended up being. So the Twins are a good team. They're playing like a good team. I was watching the Baseball Tonight preview session. Jeff Passan was on there, and, he threw it out there that the Twins are a sneaky team among some league executives of a team in the postseason that not everybody's paying attention to that could go on a run. And if you look at the World Series odds for each postseason team right now, the Twins, at least on the list I checked, were at the bottom. So there is kind of a, sleeper effect on this team. And look, as much as Twins fans are saying, I want to play this team, I want to play that team, this is the ideal matchup, Blue Jays fans are thinking that this is the ideal matchup. If you look at their social media pages, Blue Jays fans are thinking that the Twins are the team they want to play. They do not want to go to Tropicana Field to play the Tampa Bay Rays. They want to come up to Target Field. And I say up because Toronto, the Toronto, Minneapolis, the which one's further south discussion goes on. But, they want to come play the Twins. And look, you get what you deserve. Good and hard sometimes. So we'll see if that ends up being anything. We'll see if the Blue Jays, they're going to play the Twins. That's where we're at right now. We'll see how that works out. But I think overall, the Twins, at least from the outside looking in, are the most beatable playoff team. Now, I think the Twins are going to be a little bit more of a threat than some of these teams realize, but not a good regular season record. And when you look at the 18-game playoff losing streak, that's something that, again, is going to haunt this team. It's going to be something that is going to be talked about at length throughout the entirety of the Twins being in the playoffs. Even if they break the streak, that's then going to be the story, depending on how long they can take it. But as we get in now to this series, and again, it'll be interesting to note with the Twins and the Blue Jays, how many Blue Jays fans from Manitoba can plan a quick day trip down to Minneapolis to watch this game, to which I call on President Biden to immediately put a travel ban on Canadians from traveling south of the border. They should not be allowed in. Come on. No. So with that, in this series, because Blue Jays fans during the regular season are known to swarm Target Field. And part of that's because they have time in advance. Because again, it's not just the city of Toronto. It's basically the entire country of Canada that is in on this. And a lot of Blue Jays fans live in Manitoba, and it's easier to drive down to Minneapolis than it is to get all the way over to Toronto. You see this a lot when the Blue Jays play the Mariners. It's that same kind of deal. And the thought is, either they all come down because they can, or it's really hard to plan a day trip on this short notice. There's an off day tomorrow, and then it's into it. It's 3 straight days of playoff baseball at most. So how many Blue Jays fans will come in? And this gets me to the other point that has been taking over Twins Twitter lately, which has been, crowd cheering. And now there was a piece that Dan Hayes wrote in The Athletic. It was him and Aaron Gleeman going back and forth on some playoff topics, which team they would rather see them play, and some other kind of news and notes. And Dan Hayes, who is, again, I think he's a White Sox guy, or he's a Chicago guy at the very least. He's covered the White Sox, he's covered the Padres, but he's also been to a lot of other ballparks and seen a lot of other teams. And he talked about how the Twins fans can sometimes be a little lackluster in the cheering department. And what he kind of said was like, what happened to the days of the Metrodome? Like, why can't we get a little pep in the step here? And I think it's pretty innocuous. I thought what he said, I don't think he was saying the Twins fans are bad. I don't think he was saying that, anybody was doing something morally wrong. I just think his point was, generally, it's a little dead sometimes. Let's go. Your team is in the playoffs. This is a different moment. And I get some people say, well, look, there's a couple different trains of thought, which is, look, the Twins have not given them anything to cheer for in recent memory with the 18 playoff game losing streak. And I understand the gut level aspect of that. I get it. But also, who cares? In a sense of, you're at the game. Yeah, if somebody's at home and the Twins get down 5-0, for all intents and purposes, change channel. Whatever. But if you're at the playoff game, you paid good money to get those seats. Don't be sitting on your hands if the Twins get down 3-0 in the third inning. Don't sit on your hands. You're at the playoff game. You're a part of the atmosphere. You're trying to do something. And I think it's really interesting because when you look at in terms of Vikings fans, I think if you're talking in the context of football, I think people really get it. I think this concept isn't foreign to them. But for some reason, when we're explaining this in a baseball sense, this seems a little bit more complicated. And I don't know. This isn't to say anybody's a fake fan or anybody's a bad fan or somebody's not doing their part. I'm not trying to say that. What I am trying to say is Dan Hayes kind of had a point, and some people were dragging him through. Some people were trying to drag him on that one, and I get it. I bought playoff tickets because I want to be a part of that energy. I want to create something like, and I'm not saying it has to be exactly this, but something like that Johnny Cueto 2013 wildcard game in Pittsburgh, where the whole crowd's going, Cueto, Cueto, and they get him to one, drop the ball, and the crowd just goes nuts. And then the very next pitch, Russell Martin hits one over the fence in left center field, and the crowd just goes insane. And I think Twins fans have the potential to create that moment. And I want to be a part of something like that. I want to be a part of a playoff game. I want to go there. The down in front kind of attitude of like people at Twins games who think that you need, and again, regular season is different than postseason. Once a postseason game gets here, it's got to be loud. It's got to be fun. And look, in 2019, people who were there say that that was like that for the first half of the game. And then they said as the game kind of looked more and more over, it got more and more quiet, which again, on a gut level feeling I get, but also on like the whole point of being a fan is to be a little bit delusional. Like every single year you think your team can do something. Look, the Twins have 87 wins and they're going into the postseason. It's okay to be a little bit delusional. That's the point of being a fan. And especially when you're a fan of the game, it's okay to be a little delusional. That's fine. Because when the game ends, nobody cares. That's the whole point of sports. Saving yourself from the heartbreak of sports doesn't really do you much. Like, if the Twins don't win the World Series, life goes on. If the Twins win the World Series, life goes on. But what I'm trying to say is like, there's no need to shield yourself from sports heartbreak here because it happens. Are the Twins going to win the World Series this year? Probably not. They're like, again, the odds of them making it out of the first round, who knows? But jump along for the ride. Just go both feet in. It doesn't do you any good to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I know the Twins playoff history. We just got to go. The Twins could very well have it get to 20 straight games, and that'll suck. But you got to jump both feet in. That'd be my message. Anyway, so on of that discussion. Hold on, I'm getting a text here. We're doing the stream live, by the way, on all social media platforms. So with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you want to hop on there, give a comment, do a little thing, keep the stream going, feel free to hop on and do that as well. But hold on. Anyway, so with the Twins, let's take a look here at the tail of the tape, and let's see what's going on for this playoff series between the Twins and the Blue Jays, because this is the matchup that the Twins are getting. And the Blue Jays have just as good a starting pitching as the Minnesota Twins. If you look at starters ERA, it's like right up there. Kevin Gausman, Blue Jays ace, he's going to get game 1. Jose Barrios, old friend, he's going to get game 2. And Kikuchi is going to get game 3 if necessary. Now, the bullpen ERA by Toronto is one of the best in the big leagues, if not the best. So that is going to be, again, something that, you know, the Twins, and we'll talk about in a second, are building kind of their own Frankenstein super bullpen on the fly here. And I really like the potential of it. But the Blue Jays have an established bullpen that's going to try and ride them through this thing as well. And again, it just puts the emphasis in this series on, can the Twins get to some of these starting pitchers early? And I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but we'll start off with the starting pitching here. So the starting pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays, we take a look at the tail of the tape of this series. First off, the Toronto Blue Jays, if you look at their leaders in WAR from pitchers, it is Kevin Gausman. He's got 5.3 F WAR. This is all F WAR. Jose Barrios, a 3.0. Chris Bassett, 2.6. Kikuchi has 2.6 as well. And this is a bullpen that features some guys like Jordan Hicks. This is a bullpen that has had Anthony Bass pop up here and there. And again, I can't remember which of these guys ended up getting, there was a couple of them, I know, like Manoah was a guy who's not there anymore. There's a few of them that haven't quite turned it around for him for this Blue Jays team, but they're good. They're solid. They're a team that can pitch. If you look at Kevin Gausman on the season, he pitched 185 innings, had a 31% strikeout rate. His home run per 9 is under 1. So a guy who does not give up a lot of home runs, which again, in the postseason, we'll get this to the Twins offense in a second. In the postseason, the team that hits the most home runs typically wins. because that's how you generate offense in the postseason. The pitchers are better, the defense is better, things are better. So it's not just getting 4 straight singles together, 2 singles and a double, or some combination of that, or a walk and 2 singles. It is, can you get a single and can you take advantage off of a mistake and hit it over the fence? And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's, can you just get a mistake and hit it over the fence and get your team a 1-0 lead? That is postseason baseball. The team that hits the most home runs typically in the last 10 years has won the World Series. And if you look at Kevin Gausman, his home run per 9 is under 1. Then you look at Jose Barrios and Kikuchi, and especially with Barrios, he has a 1.19 home run per 9. But again, the Twins fans know that Jose Barrios can light you up for 5 innings, and then all of a sudden in the 6th, give up, 3 straight home runs, or give up a couple, just all of a sudden get shelled. And that's kind of been the pitcher Jose Barrios has been. He's a very solid number 2 pitcher, one of the best number 2 pitchers in baseball, but he's got that one thing that prevents him from becoming that true staff ace. But the Toronto Blue Jays, again, they're a team that can pitch. They're a team, again, Kevin Gausman is a good pitcher. He can do, he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. But if you look at the Minnesota Twins, they have an ERA of, I should say, Kevin Gausman's ERA against the Twins is over 5. So the Twins have owned Gausman in a couple of his starts. They have been able to get after him a little bit. And if you're just looking in terms of a game 1 system, that'd be the hope. And the Twins especially have gotten off of Gausman early. That has been the thing that has allowed them to get out and win some of these games. Is they, I remember in this 2022 start, the Twins jumped on him for 5 runs in the first inning of a start at Rogers Center. And again, we're kind of doing this on the fly, but looking at Kevin Gausman and looking at his Baseball Savant page as we try and pull this up here on the fly, trying again to talk a little postseason baseball, Minnesota Twins getting in, punching their ticket. Kevin Gausman on the season is 12-9 with a 3.16 ERA and 237 strikeouts in 185 innings pitched. So we talk about Pablo Lopez. He's second in the American League with 234 strikeouts. He's the Twins' game 1 starter. Well, Kevin Gausman has 3 more strikeouts than Pablo Lopez. And I might add, the Twins, they struck out more than any team in baseball history by strikeout percentage this season. Twins pitchers have led the league in strikeouts this year as a whole. And Twins hitters break a record for striking out more than anybody ever has. To which I pointed out on Twitter, if you're going to do something, never do it halfway. But Kevin Gausman's a good pitcher. His whip is at a 1.18. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, there's a lot of red. But again, the one thing, and this is the one thing, is Gausman does have an issue of when he does get hit, he does get hit hard. If teams can barrel him up and get some lasers off of him, it kind of comes in bunches. And the Twins have learned this because they've been usually the team that's been able to get to him. If you look at max exit velocity, which doesn't necessarily tell the entire story, it's one of the bottom percentiles in the league. And it's the point of, he's got great stuff, but if a team can time it up, it goes a mile. If a team can figure it out, it works out pretty well. Now, Kevin Gausman is a guy who throws a lot of fastballs, about 51% fastballs. And I see my microphone. Apologies for that. Mic muted on me, and we are taking a look here at our stream and switching to the bad microphone here. So we are going to roll. We'll keep moving on with this thing. But really, with the Minnesota Twins and with Kevin Gausman, four-seam fastball throws 51% of the time, split finger 38.4%, slider 10.2%, and he does have a sweeper that he mixes in occasionally, but he's only thrown it 18 times on the season. So really, he's got 3 pitches, and he's a major fastball guy. He's got that split finger and throws the slider when he needs to. And if you look this season, there's just been not a big jump, I should say, but a steady increase in when he's throwing a little bit of that split finger and just seeing that jump up a little bit. But if we look at the pitch tracking, his fastball average speed checks out in the 95 mile an hour range. That split finger goes down to an 86. and again mixes in the slider at 84, sweeper at about 77 miles an hour. If you look in terms of his put away pitch, again, it is the fastball and the split finger that really are in that spot. And again, it's the whole point of his fastball split finger really, really good. But also at the end of the day, if you can make contact, if you can hit that thing, it's going to end up working out. You're going to end up getting some good results on that as well. And the Twins found that out, as we've learned earlier in the season. If you look this year, he is more of a ground ball pitcher, although just under that league average, does get some line drives as well. And again, if the Twins can put some decent contact on this ball, they're going to be able to do some stuff. He doesn't give up a lot of home runs, but the Twins have found ways to hit him in years past and have found ways to get past him. So that's game one. And of course, Jose Barrios, we all know about him. We just talked about that there. And Kikuchi, we'll see if that even needs to get that far. We're just kind of focusing on these two games because, look, if the Twins end up winning a playoff game and they break the streak, that's like mission accomplished. You know what I mean? Like that's the success that they're looking for in that situation. So I'm not going to fault them too much. My expectation was a long time ago was, look, they may not be a World Series juggernaut, but can they just get into the playoffs? Can they break the streak and maybe even win a playoff series and kind of see where things go from there? I think this team is built to do some stuff in the postseason. So again, we talk about the Twins pitching. We know that they can strike a lot of guys out. We know Pablo Lopez usually just has one rough inning, typically could be the first, sometimes pops up in like the fourth or fifth. And there's just some times where things pop up and get a little weird. The thing with the Twins that they have the advantage of, I think, is not only do they have Pablo Lopez, not only do they have Sonny Gray, who Sonny Gray finished second in the American League in earned run average. And then in game three, it'd be Joe Ryan. But not only that, the Twins have Kenta Maeda. The Twins have Louis Varland. The Twins have Chris Paddack, who came back this week. Chris Paddack looked great, I thought. Maybe not. Maybe great's a little strong. He looked solid, I should say, in his time back, was able to throw that fastball up there. And I think the Twins are able to piggyback some of those guys and use them, whether it's in a long relief kind of situation, whether it's in maybe a shorter one-inning firefighting type of role. The Twins were able to sub out Winders, and they were able to sub out Cole Sands, and they were able to sub out some of these guys who they didn't really use and didn't really want to use, and now they can flex in some of these other guys. Because on top of that, Jorge Alcala came back and pitched today, although he gave up a home run, but it's Coors Field, so it's really hard to tell. But also they got Brock Stewart back. And getting Brock Stewart back and having him pitch in games and feel all right is a huge bonus for this team. And having Brock Stewart in this playoff mix, it's going to be big because, again, you have Duran, who's number one. You have Brock Stewart and Caleb Thielbar and Emilio Pagan and Griffin Jackson. All of a sudden, Griffin Jackson is a 5 on this bullpen ranking in the hierarchy. At one point, Griffin Jackson, kind of out of necessity, was like a 2 or 3. With Thielbar and Stewart coming back, you now bump him down to a 5 role. And then you also have your Varlands, your Funderburks, if he's going to get on the roster. You have, which I think Funderburk deserves at least a shake on the roster. But again, how high of leverage spots are you going to use him in remains to be seen. But you have Maeda, you have some of these guys. Because remember, the Twins don't need to have a full 5-man rotation. The Twins need 3 pitchers, and then you can use your assortment of bullpen guys. Now, it doesn't need to be a 13-13 split in the postseason. Teams will like to use more bench options for hitters and pinch runners than they will pitchers, because you only need 3 starters. You'll have your bullpen guys, and it's only a 3-game series instead of a 5 or 7-game series. So you theoretically can load up and get maybe 1 or 2 extra hitters on your team compared to a longer series and try and maybe give yourself a little bit more depth in late game situations that way. But looking at the starting pitching department, I'm a homer. I want to give the edge to the Twins, and I think I will, mainly because if you look at Gausman and Pablo, I'm going to put it as a wash. And that's not to say that Gausman and Pablo are exactly the same, but it's to say that Gausman's career track record against the Twins plus Pablo Lopez's good season, I'm going to say it's about a wash. And then if you look at Barrios and Gray, I'm going to say Sonny Gray has the advantage against the Blue Jays in that one. And then Ryan and Kikuchi are pretty much a wash in that situation
as well, both kind of up and down, really. So I don't know. I mean, the pitching department's kind of even. Maybe you give the edge to the Blue Jays because Gausman is just maybe slightly better than Lopez if you want to go by strikeout numbers. If there's another metric, if you want to go by ERA. But either way, Twins in a good spot there. The bullpen, you got to give the edge to Toronto. They just have some guys that can lock her down. Their bullpen ERA is one of the best in baseball. Give that edge to Toronto in the playoffs. And again, not just because of that, but also because this Twins bullpen, despite the possibilities of having Paddock and Stewart and Alcala and Varland in the bullpen and having all of these options now at Rocco's disposal, it still is unproven. This still is a unit that is unproven. They've really kind of gotten their feet wet against Oakland and Colorado and Los Angeles. The Twins haven't really played a do-or-die competitive series since the Cincinnati series a couple weeks ago. And even then, the American League Central is basically already locked up. Like the Twins, for most of September, have been playing under the assumption that they're going to win the American League Central. And now everything tightens up, and now these games are uber important, where you look at Toronto, where they've been fighting for their playoff lives all month, and things maybe are a little different in that regard. But if you look at the lineup, on paper, it looks like the Blue Jays lineup should outclass the Twins 6 ways from Sunday. You have Chapman, you have Marcus Semien, you have Bo Bichette, you have Dalton Varsho, you have Vlad Guerrero Jr. You have George Springer. You look up and down this lineup and you just see names and big names and high prospects. But if you look at OPS plus, the Twins are slightly better than the Toronto Blue Jays. If you look at WAR, the Twins are better. If you look at home run numbers, if you look at run numbers, if you look at weighted on base average, if you look at base running, the Twins are miles better than the Toronto Blue Jays. If you thought the Twins, one of their most underrated improvements this year has been in their base running, getting gaffes, less and less running gaffes, also stealing more bases. Willie Castro has helped out a lot with that. But at the end of the day, the Twins have just been cleaner on the base paths, and it's one of their more underrated aspects. It showed the Blue Jays are kind of in that old Twins camp of the last couple of years. They don't run the bases very well, and that is something that could end up coming up big in that. So the Twins are a slightly better hitting team than the Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays have a higher ceiling, but they also have a lower floor, and that'll be the thing because Vlad Guerrero Jr., we talk about Carlos Correa having a down year. He's got a WAR of about 1. Vlad Guerrero Jr. has a WAR about similar to Correa. He hasn't been producing as much as his talent level should indicate. Same thing with a couple other of their guys. Dalton Varsho and Chapman were hitting 8 and 9 in the final series of the season. No, like they're not firing on all cylinders with their offense. They've been relying on their pitching. It's been like the first half Minnesota Twins where you're just running on the back of your pitchers and hoping your offense can do just enough to get you the win. And the Twins have been a little bit more balanced in the second half of the season. And getting those rookies into the mix has definitely helped out a lot with that. The other thing, again, is that Coors hangover effect the Twins lineup has is they are coming back from Coors Field where the breaking pitches don't quite break the same. The ball travels farther than it should. And now they go from that against a 100-plus loss team in the final series of the season when the Twins weren't playing for anything. And now all of a sudden they're back home. The air thickness is at a normal level, and everything kind of is just tightened up. This is the most important game of the season and the most important series of the season. How does that look a little bit different? And that's something also to monitor. But look, the Minnesota Twins are into the playoffs. They're playing the Toronto Blue Jays. The series is set. And if you look at the tail of the tapes again, the lineup, I got to give to the Twins. The starting pitching, I think, is a wash. The bullpen, you got to give to the Blue Jays. And let me put it to you this way. The last time the Twins and the Blue Jays met in the playoffs was the 1991 ALCS. So, hey, here we go. Let's see what happens this time around. And also, it should be noted that both teams haven't necessarily had a ton of postseason success recently. So the Toronto Blue Jays got in 2020, and they didn't do anything. They got in last year, and they didn't do anything. It was a mess, like a huge mess. They squandered an 8-run lead to the Seattle Mariners in an elimination game, and they were done. And so they want to rebound off that performance. The Twins, of course, want to break the playoff losing streak. And this could be the team. And the one thing I'll leave you on this. So I think I think both teams are pretty even. I think this series is going to be fun. I'm going to leave you with this one thing. The Minnesota Twins, ever since they clinched the division, you hear Kyle Farmer talk about it, and this is his first year with the team. You heard Ryan Jeffers talk about it, and he was on the 2020 roster, but I can't remember quite if he was on the playoff roster or not. But you have guys who have been on this team for a few years. You've had guys like Jorge Polanco, Max Kepler, who've been on this team since 2015. You just have all of this coming together in the sense of it doesn't matter what status this player has in the organization. The Twins have this giant belief that this is going to be the team to end the streak. That is their mission. You heard Rocco in 2019 and the players talk about it in 2019 and also in 2020. And I think it was the right thing to say. I'm not saying that they were doing anything wrong, but they said, hey, that's not our thing. The postseason losing streak, we're not a part of that. We're not like, we're our own people. We're trying to do our own thing. And then the 2020 postseason broke Rocco, where he was like, look, this team has a lot of playoff failure, and now we're a part of it. And I don't know how we handle that. Like, the 2020 postseason did kind of break Rocco in a sense. But that's the thing, is this team has said, you know what? Forget it. Like, yeah, this is a part of our team's history, and we want to be the team to break it. And I know that in a game like baseball where numbers can be tracked so well and data can be acquired at a moment's notice, and it's very valuable data, but there's just something to be said about the Twins accepting the team of destiny vibe. I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it. I think that is going to pay dividends. I think this is a team that comes motivated to break the streak. I think they're a team that wants to prove themselves, and this is something, just breaking the streak, getting the monkey off the back of this organization. So every single time we have to, Twins Twitter has to stop posting the gif of Donald Trump going, you're telling me this for the very first time. Every time everybody has to bring up 0-18 in the postseason. Let's just get that broken so we can move on as a franchise. That's important. And can the Twins do that? Hey, we'll find out. I think they got as good of a chance as anybody, and I'm going to be at the game on Tuesday. That is how much faith I have that at some point in this series, the Twins will break the streak, hopefully on Tuesday. All right, well, here's the last bit of information that we're going to discuss, which is Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa. Here's the update on kind of gut level reaction on Royce Lewis. He's going to play, but he's going to play DH. Gut level reaction on Carlos Correa. He's going to play shortstop. He's going to be fine, or at least he's going to play in his normal role. Byron Buxton, my gut level feeling is he's not going to be on the AL wildcard roster. And I will preface that by saying I have no inside information on that. So I'm not trying to tell you I'm hearing something. I'm going off like my gut reaction. And my gut reaction tells me that just based on, Buxton wants to play, he's advocating to play. He talked to Lavelli Neal of the Star Tribune and basically said, I've been banging on Rocco's door saying I want to play. And the Twins have to balance the thing of, well, Byron Buxton will play no matter what, no matter how much he can play. And that's good on that's good like on first glance, but then you realize that, well, he hurts himself, then he's unusable, and we can't really use him for much, and he's not valuable to this team, and he's kind of holding us back. Like the Twins need to figure out kind of that balance, and I think the Twins will probably come to the conclusion of, and again, I'm basing this off of nothing, saying something like, we're going to keep him off this one, and the hope is that if he rests and he's ready, he can be ready for a division series. Now, that would have its flaws in it because that's basically giving yourself like an extra 5 days. And if Buxton is systemically hurt or something that needs months to recover from or multiple weeks, 4 days isn't exactly going to do you any good. But that's the thing, is if you put Buxton in, you're not putting Buxton in just to be a pinch runner, just to be a bench runner. If Buxton's going to make this roster, he is going to need to be able to start and play in center field. And especially if Royce Lewis is going to be DH, then you have nowhere else for Buxton to go but center field. So what do you do? And that's going to be the big question. So my gut level is that Royce Lewis is the DH and that Carlos Correa plays shortstop and is in his normal role, and Byron Buxton is left off of the wild card roster. But I think the Twins would be willing to put him maybe on the ALDS roster should they get that far. Again, basing it off of nothing. So don't take what I say as some kind of insider information. I'm sure you weren't doing that anyways, but I'm just going to get out and say that. Any other kind of news and notes? I think that's pretty much it. Dallas Keuchel was put on the 10-day IL, so he's gone. Jorge Alcala was activated to make room, and there's really nothing else to talk about. All the Twins pitchers that the Twins have been counting on or wanting to come back are here, and they're ready to go. The Twins hitting is pretty much based on three of maybe the most important guys on the team. Awesome. So let's wrap up by saying my projected game one lineup. And here's what I had. I just texted this to a buddy the other day, and I still think it holds true here. So Sam, if you're listening to this, hey, I got you here. I'm pulling up this text that I sent to you the other day here. So what I think the playoff lineup looks something similar to this. And again, I could be wrong. So Pablo Lopez obviously is going to be pitching. I think Ed Julian is the DH. I think Jorge Polanco at second base. Hold on. I'm going to switch this here because my thoughts have changed on this a little bit. Julian is going to be at second base. Polanco will be at third base. Kirilloff will be first base. Royce Lewis will be DHing. Max Kepler right field. Carlos Correa shortstop. Matt Wallner left field. Ryan Jeffers catching. And Matt in center field. Now, things maybe look a little bit different. Maybe Wallner hits a little bit up. I'm trying to balancing the lineup out a little bit here. But I think that playoff lineup looks something similar. And again, if Julian can play second base, or if Julian can DH and then Polanco plays second base and Royce Lewis plays third, that's optimal defensively because as we learned, there's a reason why Jorge Polanco is not at shortstop anymore. It's because he botched a play in the 2020 series at shortstop, relaying a throw to second base. Like, that's the thing is you're relying on something like Jorge Polanco playing third base in a playoff series when, hey, it's the top of the ninth inning, runner on second, 2 outs, just get the final out, and he can't make it. Well, okay, just have the next guy, get out, and then the next guy hits a go-ahead hit. You're out of luck. And in playoffs, the anecdotal becomes bigger than this is why the playoffs are so fun, is because in a 162-game large sample size, you don't get stressed about small things. And now in a 3-game and at least 2-game sample size, every little mistake, every little thing becomes important. Every out matters. It is a race to 27 outs. And that's why the playoffs are so stressful. Playoff baseball is one of the most stressful playoff sports to watch when your team is in them. Playoff basketball, it's like, gave up a bucket, we'll get a bucket. Like, I don't know, like that, I feel like, and again, maybe some people disagree with that, but I think that is less stressful. I think even playoff football can be less stressful. Playoff baseball, to me, super stressful. One time when I was a sophomore in college, me and one of my roommates were watching the 2017 wild card game, and the Twins were up 3-0. And then the Twins immediately gave that 3-run lead back up to the Yankees. It was 3-3 in the first inning. And I was freaking out. And I remember he looked at me and he was like giving me a hard time that I was like freaking out. And I was like, you don't understand, man. Like the Twins had a 3-run lead. They could have just ran away with this thing. It's like, it's over. And the Twins ended up losing like 8-4. So, it's how it goes. But the thing with the Twins here and the thing with all of this is there is no way to correlate postseason success. There is no way to correlate a team playing their best baseball going in, a team playing their worst baseball going in, a team with better pitching, a team with better hitting. There's an old Billy Beane line. Billy Beane, the Moneyball guy, Brad Pitt, you know what I mean? He says, it's not my job to win the World Series. It's my job to get a team into the postseason. And whatever they do after that, I can't control. And that's pretty much it. The Twins are into the postseason. They got their ticket. They're into the tournament. And now it's up to the team to be able to do it. Everything gets thrown out the window. It's a brand new season. Let's go. I'm going to be doing a post-game recap podcast, probably from one of the parking ramps of Target Field in the back of my wife's car while she's annoyingly waiting for traffic and me to hurry up. So rightfully so, by the way. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's excitement after a Twins win. Or worst case scenario, it is dejection, rejection, feeling hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, flat out deceived, all that jazz. But hey, playoffs are here. Let's go. Follow Bombs Away on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're going to be posting a whole bunch with some stuff coming up in the near future. So keep an eye out on that over the next couple of days as well. Minnesota Twins are into the baseball playoffs, the American League Wild Card Series. They will be hosting the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's do this. My final note here. I've had like 3 different final notes, but I would be remiss if I didn't end the podcast talking about this. And that is my rules of the road for this series with the Toronto Blue Jays. Rule number 1, watch the South Park movie. 1, because it's hilarious. Bigger, Longer, Uncut is a super funny movie. Please watch that. And also find new ways in that movie to make fun of Canadians. Rule number 2, place a ban on watching Letterkenny or Trailer Park Boys for the next 3 to 5 days. Sorry, just can't do it. Rule number 3, no mercy, even if Blue Jays and their fans are polite. Don't forget what they did to Justin Morneau. Don't forget him sliding into second base and their second baseman absolutely kneeing him in the head. And I know it was not intentional, but here's my point. It's their fault that Justin Morneau's 2010 season was done. That guy was going to win a second MVP. That guy would be on a Hall of Fame trajectory if not for that concussion and the concussion-like symptoms that followed him for years. So darn it, Toronto, you're to blame for that, and it's time you pay. And also, tell Toronto Blue Jays fans that Fidel Castro's son is their prime minister. And it's just kind of a funny little thing. Go look at a picture of those two. It's eerily similar. And 5, remember that Whit Merrifield was totally out last year at Target Field and that Gary Sanchez did not block the plate. Okay? Any other rules, feel free to add them down in the comments. Feel free to just start peppering them around. Look, Blue Jays fans may be polite, but we are definitely not going to be. Make Target Field a Blue Jay-free environment. No birds in there. Do not let Blue Jays fans buy up tickets and get down to Minneapolis this week and make it take away that home field advantage. Okay, do not do that. Do not allow them to do that. So, all right, there we go. This has been Bombs Away, a Minnesota Twins podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.